For all the wrong reasons.
Subjective.
Straight face, straight face. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. So we're actually at the point now where we're wrapping things up. But before we do, we're going to have the closing remarks. So I'd like to introduce at this point Cordell Carter of Aspen Institute and Cultural Vistas. He's a distinguished alumni leader. He is currently the executive director of Aspen Institute Socrates program. So at this point, I would like to welcome Cordell.
Well, please, how's it going for Dr. Omar Wad and Lori Lane, all this logistics? Remember me. Remember me. I was at Gettysburg about 4 days ago. For the very first time, if you haven't been to the battlefield, I would suggest you all go. But I could not get the words to that old spiritual that was sung at repasses, at when the announcement of someone passing in the congregation was made, typically in one of those evening services. The decision was like, are they traveling or are we taking care of it? The answer typically was number 2. But remember me, just like that bugler, droning on with those 24 haunting yet beautiful notes. The taps is what I'm referencing. Remember me. So it got me thinking, what is it exactly that we are remembering? And why? Moreover, what is a framework in which we are remembering? What does it represent? And I can't help but think that we are all part of what I call a civic religion. I'll explain. There's a certain frame of reference that we use. We are aligned in our values. As I look across this room, we look different. Many of us have origins from countries other than these United States, yet we are aligned. We are adherents to a certain civic faith that unites us across borders. Remember me. So what is a North Star? Every religion needs a North Star. And some would say, well, it's the Declaration of Rights and Sentiments, the coming out of the Gang of Nine after the Stamp Act Rebellion. I argue that actually we have 2 North Stars in our constellation, one being the second stanza of the Declaration of Independence written in 1776. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Self-evident? Those are strange words. It's a synonym for what Thomas Jefferson really wanted to say. He wanted to say sacred. But sacred is too religious, said Ben Franklin. So he changed the words to self-evident. Self-evident is something that only a community of believers can say. We hold these things to be self-evident because they are. A tree is bigger than me, so God made it. It has to be true. It's self-evident. But 87 years later, that proposition was changed. This idea that all men are created equal was challenged on the battlefields of Gettysburg. And as I walked through that battlefield reenactment, 7.5 hours with leaders from the Army War College, just imagining all the carnage that happened there, you knew that you were on hallowed ground. That's not a battlefield. That's a memorial to all the lives lost. People are screaming from the ground. Those tombs of the unknown soldiers saying, remember me. At the Gettysburg Address, Lincoln changed the idea, this notion that things are self-evident, essentially saying, we're contesting that a nation, any nation, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. It altered the North Star. No, it's not self-evident. It's something we have to fight for. And any good faith is worth contending for. So ladies and gentlemen, I offer to you, what are you contending for? As you are in the business of ensuring that your fellow men are remembering something that tragic happened, you are in fact executing what we call communion. Do this in remembrance of me. But what and why are we remembering? I return back to that central question. So I think there are 2 tensions that we must contend with. One is what I call the ritual, and the other is the relationship. Ritualistically, I can wave a flag and go to a football game and say USA, USA. Moreover, as a policymaker, I can outsource all of my valor and sacrifice via budget decisions to the men and women in the armed forces. Let them fight for democracy while I do my thing over here. Eat popcorn as the folks who watched the Gettysburg battle did. Eating popcorn, or whatever it was their enslaved people gave them, as they watch these men fight for them. Remember me. So I want us to get out of the ritual and get to relationship. So if the ritual is going to Mass, the relationship is living right every single day. Yes, you are the guardians of the relationship. You're making sure we live right by telling us the truth. That which I love, I chastise. You're chastising us. You're forcing us to engage in communion, not just on the holiday of this tragic thing, but every single day. So I encourage you all to keep holding us accountable to the relationship that is required to sustain the civic religion that we call democratic ideals, that we call civilized society. But for you, we can't do it. So I thank you all so much. Really appreciate you all coming out today, and thank you for sharing a few words. Cheers.
Thank you, Cordell. So when Cordell was speaking just now, right, I was just making so many notes at the wonderful things that he brought to the table just now. Well, I already knew he was a brilliant speaker, but he really hit a lot of points. And one thing that I do want to share as we close out is Cordell saying, are we aligned in our mission, right? Aligned in our mission. Now, sometimes that mission escapes us, right? And then we kind of go off track. That doesn't really matter as much as long as we can get back on track. And I know we sometimes participate in organizations and things like that, right? And then work consumes our time, and then it kind of escapes us. But I think the important thing is that we find our way back to that mission and that cause and keep going forward with those energies. Because you know what? There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And if we collaborate, work together in addressing these issues, having more facilitations like this, bringing people together. Something beautiful happened last night, right? So some of us just got together, right, in the hotel. And what transpired from that was magic, right? We all of a sudden pushed the tables together and had conversation. Pushed the tables together and had conversation about things pertinent to the work that we're doing. Now, I would really wish I had Dr. Denise's way of putting those words together, because she stated something so eloquently of how that all came together, but nonetheless it did. And we put our minds together, our minds became one, and then we were energized from that. So my hope from this is that, pardon? Yes, Denise, why don't you say this and inspire, please.
We talked about last night being what would happen if we choose to live in the spirit of Salbona. Thank you. Zulu tribal greeting, Salbona, which on its face means hello. But when you dig a little deeper, it means I see you. And by seeing you, I bring you into my existence. And I invite you to see me and to bring me into yours. And if you accept the opportunity, the invitation to bring me into your existence, to see me, then that means that we are connected. Forever and ever and always, we are one. And so what would that look like if we lived into the spirit of Salbona so that everywhere you go, you realize that I am there with you, whether you can see me or not. What would it look like to live into the spirit of Salbona, where we realize that we carry each other's presence in our souls at all times and in all places and in front of all people? And so what Dr. Earl is referring to is the manifestation of Salbona that happened organically last night. When Clarice walked into the room and Sulin saw her and said, I see you, come sit with us. But there wasn't enough room at the table because Clarice was not by herself, and we were still expecting other people to come as well. And so then Jephthah, in the spirit of Salbona, said, let's pull the table together, and let's pull the other table together. And now we've created a holy, sacred Trinity. Not Father, not Son, not Holy Ghost, but connection and presence and story. And we were there in that room in the spirit of Salbona, and we talked with our voices. We tasted with our mouths. We felt with our hearts. We touched with our hands. We received in our bodies. We embodied Salbona. So now the question becomes, will you see me when we leave this place? Will we see each other? Will we carry in each other's bodies, each other's existence? And if the answer to that is yes, then what would that look like in our work of remembering? That's the question that we pose to you, because you're the only one who can decide. And we just hope that this conversation, as we wrap it up, will help you figure that out. Salbona.
And so she gives me back the mic. But that was so beautifully and eloquently and elegantly stated, and it actually reflects the work of what we are doing. So I'll end on that, right? Keep that in mind, what she said, and let's continue doing this wonderful, amazing work. And God bless, and it was such an honor having everyone visit Orlando and this symposium, and I hope that we carry this work in our heart. So thank you, everyone. Yes. Actually, we can, but you know who could probably talk more about that is Scott Bowman. Scott Bowman is a colleague over at One Pulse Foundation. So he, yeah. Oh, okay.
Can everyone hear me? All right. So how many are staying for the ceremony tomorrow? Oh, great. This is excellent. So our ceremony is actually at the Pulse Inter Memorial. It goes from 7 to 8 p.m. We start the ceremony off with a song, we have prayer, and we have a slate of speakers, and we end with the reading of the 49 names from the family members. So the audience is about 600 people. It's mostly what we call as our stakeholders, our family survivors, first responders, community leaders. So it's a very beautiful moment, and we're glad that you can be here to join us for it. It's very hot outside. We're outside. It's going to be 90 degrees, so be comfortable. And you'll see a little bit of everything. We usually say it's business casual, but just be comfortable. Address. Who has the address? Oh, my. Thank you. Sorry. It's right behind the actual memorial. We're doing it behind for some land that we just purchased there. So 7 to 8 p.m.
But I would recommend coming early and
Yes.
parking and getting navigated to the site.
Yeah. So we have reserved seating, but we also open it up for the community because the community feels like they own this with us, which is great. So we have standing room only. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
We do want to make one announcement, please, to complete the surveys